Hello, I am going to do a play along track for parts of this one, so that way you can better fit into your part and work on molding the sound. So we're going to first just play it through the first section of the Merry Wives of Windsor, starting at measure 14. I'm going to have a metronome on as well as my tuner, so you can trust that I am in good pitch, and I want you to try to make your sound blend into that and make yourself aware of your own intonation issues. All right, so let's get started. 64, 1 bar, 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so there I played through that section. I hope you were able to take inventory of what you were doing, if you tended to be sharp or flat on certain notes. So let's talk about this section and different ways that we can work on tuning and becoming better at tuning throughout all our registers and whenever we're playing, even by ourselves. So let's all just look at that first B flat, the first flute part, because we're going to use this as our example note. So if you just play B flat and kind of let it sing, let you play out the way that you want to. For me, it tends sharp, which means I'd be thinking down. And sometimes we as flutists likes to achieve that by tucking our chin, which usually is not a good thing to do, or by rolling in. But that cuts off our sound, and that is not good. There are different ways to do this that may be a teensy-wish bit more challenging, but they are better for you in the long run. Now, you may say, okay, that's only one note, but there's so many on the flute. You're absolutely right. And that's why many of these notes, for example, the E in the first flute part in measure 16, we can use A, that's our regular, and we can overblow that one. Using our regular fingering and our harmonic fingering interchangeably with our tuners on to kind of get the sense of where that note wants to be. And you want to be making little corrections on each of these, and eventually your face is going to know what to do. So you want to be able to find these fingering for your notes all across the register, because they're great ways to check your intonation and just your tuning in general. And that's one thing that would be challenging, at least if I was playing this piece in this beginning, is getting my intonation really right with the rest of my section as well as the entire orchestra. So let's talk about that allegro vivace section. Yay! I think this section is so fun. There's so many notes. It's typical fluty stuff, but there are some challenges that lie within this music. For example, flute 1 right at 1, 2, 3, 4 after 4. You better be practicing that slowly. We're not going to hit on it today because that's one thing that you can just do with super slow. Just go slower or faster and faster and faster, but do not make mistakes while practicing it up that way. But let's just look right on the top page of 4 on the right left-hand corner. So we have these these notes tied to a 16th, a quarter note tied to a 16th note. These aren't particularly horrible runs for you. I'd encourage you to, so do not, make sure you're off your thumb B flat, as there is a B natural in that second bar, and that will be no good, and you don't want that trouble of like sliding. You can just keep it down and be happy that way. But one strategy I'm going to give you for this is a breath pulse strategy for just making sure that you're precise with the orchestra and your section. Now, you don't need to go this slowly to practice them. Ideally, you want to be able to do these breath pulses at a pretty sprightly tempo, but this is just introducing this motion, this technique to your body if you've never done it before. And this can be applied to more than just high notes. For example, if you look at 5, the first flute, you really need to make sure you're steady as a rock there, and you're going 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and thinking of that. And you can even go da 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 d and kind of reinforce what your tongue is doing by just thinking of a little like pulse from your chest cavity or your stomach. Some of the famous great flute pedagogues out there have often said you have to tongue from your drum meaning your stomach. So let's just go at 5 at a nice sprightly tempo, and we're just gonna play the first 2 measures until that quarter note, and we're gonna stop right on that quarter note. So I'm gonna pull up a metronome, and I just want you to feel that tongue from the drum. Dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da da da. 1. Just like that. So you just wanna feel that tonguing from the drum. Take it slowly. Work on just feeling that stronger articulation that isn't all relying on your tongue to do all the work, because tonguing is much more, and articulation is much more than just your tongue. All right, one of the last sections I want to address of this piece, because I do believe this piece has its challenges, but that it is very ergonomically written. It's very healthy, and if you practice it slowly, you will have great success. But let's talk about 3 after 12, where we have those quick grace notes. One thing that I want to make sure that you're thinking about is that we do have a B flat in our key signature, as well as a B flat going to an A flat. So please use your thumb B flat. It'll make your life a lot easier in those passages. So another way I want you to practice these is taking out that grace note and just working on getting it at that precise tempo. So I'm going to put my metronome on like 80. 1. And we're just going to play right on 3 after 12, the 8th and 2/16. Ready? All right, so one more time, play with me. 1, 2. So it's a really fast, even kind of sprightly tempo at that. So then you're going to want to add those grace notes in once you know that you can't. So overall, this piece has a ton of runs throughout it, as well as those tricky grace note figures. So I encourage you to make sure that you're practicing this slow, that you double check all the places that you can use for thumb B flat. These are places where you have B flats, either in the K signature and no B naturals coming up, as well as places where you don't have the high F sharp up there, as the B flat fingering doesn't really work. It does not work there. It's going to make your F sharp sound disgusting. So yeah, so let's look at 26. And for example, from 26 to the end, I would tell you to use your B flat fingering, your thumb B flat, because it will make your life easier as you do navigate those runs. I do believe this piece, like I mentioned earlier is really healthy. It is written well in your range to use like some of those fingerings like thumb B flat, and it is very kind of fun to play. I loved listening to this piece and getting to know it better, so that way I could give you some hints. Another thing I want you to encourage you throughout this whole piece is just to play into the characters. Think of you are as a storyteller, and so you need to like really watch your conductor and pay attention to what they are telling you, so that way you can optimize your time there and your time in NVYO to not only become a better technical player, but to become a better musician, because music isn't about this like all the little notes, it's about the big broad pictures. So notice where you have the hairpins, the crescendos and decrescendos. Notice these accents that you have before 21. Those are just opportunities to shape more, and they kind of look like little hairpins, little decrescendos, because they're going to be like a more aggressive thing. So like a you have like this kind of building, and notice like these little crescendos under here. So I would also encourage you to check out that section before 21 with your harmonic fingerings. A flat, you can use a D flat on there, and then you can just roll down to C for that C, or you could use an F fingering. I'd encourage you to use a C. All right, to wrap out this video, I want to just talk about a few more things and recap. So I talked about how our intonation and that we can use those harmonic fingerings. Those can be tricky to kind of figure out because it is a little bit of a weird concept that has to do with physics and stuff that's way over my head. But those are really, really, really useful to practicing your intonation and getting better at that, and that is something that's so important in chamber music. And during COVID has been very easy for me to forget how to play with others because I'm playing so much by myself. I'm not in as many ensembles, I'm not playing with the local orchestras as much because of all the restrictions, and so you really need to lock on into that intonation, and you may be playing with masks on, so it's not as easy. However, that just allows for a new opportunity for you to get better because you're playing under these restrictive conditions. And so that's why I kind of focused on intonation, because it's so important. And if you look throughout this whole piece, you have opportunities to work on intonation. For example, at 27, flute 1, you have high E's. I would recommend taking your pinky off. It's a very sharp note, and taking your pinky off helps lower the pitch. But this is another one I'd practice with some harmonics. So for example, just A. And notice how harmonic certain ones tend to be flat, and you have to correct them. But this will help you find this more happy place in your sound. So with this piece, I just to also encourage you to practice all these runs slow. We could go through them all today, but I'm confident that you don't need that from me right now. So just take your metronome out at tempos and take it very slowly, and just make sure that you're being very precise and that you're not making a mistake. I have teachers here at my graduate program who say, yeah, any time that my student makes a mistake, they pay me $0.25. And so that's like motivation for us not to make mistakes. And I don't think anyone's gonna do that to you at NVYO, but it's good kind of mindset to do when you're getting a little bit of like have to pay into this thing when you make a mistake that you could have avoided if you had just practiced slowly. So I hope this video helps a little bit, and good luck on your concert. Can't wait to watch it.